What if I told you that a single moment of linguistic brilliance performed by someone society renders invisible could expose a web of international deception worth billions? What if the waitress you barely notice while she refills your coffee holds the key to unraveling corporate espionage that threatens national security? This is the story of Elena Vasquez, 28 years old, serving tables at Riverside Diner in downtown Portland, carrying herself with the quiet precision of someone who has learned to navigate dangerous territories most people will never see. But Elena speaks 7 languages fluently and has walked through war zones where a mistranslated word could mean the difference between life and death. Tonight, you'll witness how one overheard conversation in perfect French revealed secrets that powerful people thought were safely hidden behind language barriers. Then you'll discover why the most dangerous intelligence often travels through the most ordinary conversations, spoken by people who assume no one around them could possibly understand. And you'll learn that sometimes the person serving your dinner is actually serving her country in ways that require complete invisibility. Have you ever wondered what would happen if someone with classified training was forced to hide in plain sight? Tonight's story will show you exactly why underestimating the quiet ones can cost everything. Deep in the heart of Riverside Diner, where the fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows over worn vinyl booths and the air carries the permanent aroma of coffee and fried onions, Elena Vasquez begins another double shift that will stretch from lunch rush until closing time. Her section includes 8 tables arranged along windows that face the Willamette River, offering diners a view of Portland's industrial bridges while they consume comfort food that tastes like childhood memories wrapped in nostalgia. Elena moves through this familiar landscape with economy of motion that speaks to military training most customers would never recognize. Her posture remains perfectly straight, despite 12-hour shifts that would leave most people slouching with exhaustion. Her eyes continuously scan the dining room, cataloging exits, noting unusual behavior, maintaining situational awareness. That has become as automatic as breathing. She carries herself like someone who has learned that survival often depends on seeing threats before they fully materialize. The diner itself represents everything about working-class America that politicians claim to understand but rarely experience firsthand. Cracked linoleum floors worn smooth by decades of foot traffic tell stories of families celebrating small victories and mourning quiet defeats. The coffee machine gurgles with mechanical persistence, providing caffeine to truck drivers, night shift workers, and insomniacs who find solace in fluorescent-lit spaces where loneliness feels less acute when shared with strangers. Today, Elena tends to her usual collection of regulars, mixed with travelers passing through Portland on their way to somewhere else. Mr. Patterson, the retired postal worker who orders black coffee and wheat toast every morning at exactly 7:15, sits in his customary corner booth reading yesterday's newspaper with the methodical attention of someone who has nowhere urgent to be. Sarah Martinez, the single mother who works 2 jobs to support 3 children, grabs her usual lunch break meal of soup and salad while scrolling through text messages from her teenager who needs help with algebra homework. Elena knows their stories, their preferences, their struggles, because she listens with the intensity of someone trained to extract intelligence from casual conversation. But they know nothing about her beyond her efficiency with coffee refills and her tendency to anticipate their needs before they voice them. They see a quiet young woman who speaks softly accented English, who works harder than anyone should have to work, who always maintains professional courtesy even when customers test her patience with unnecessary rudeness. What they cannot see is the extraordinary linguistic computer that operates behind Elena's dark eyes. 7 languages flow through her consciousness like parallel rivers, each one carrying cultural nuances and regional dialects that took years of intensive study to master. Spanish came first, inherited from grandparents who spoke it exclusively. At home, teaching her that language carries the soul of a people within its rhythms and inflections. French followed during high school, when she discovered an aptitude for absorbing grammatical structures that teachers found remarkable. Arabic arrived during her military intelligence training, along with Farsi and Mandarin, languages that opened doors to understanding conflicts most Americans only read about in headlines. Each new language required not just vocabulary memorization, but cultural immersion that taught her to think in different conceptual frameworks, to understand how worldview shapes communication, to recognize the subtle ways that speakers reveal their true intentions through word choice and syntactic patterns. Russian completed her collection, learned during assignment to a joint NATO intelligence operation where Elena served as a linguistic bridge between allied forces trying to coordinate responses to evolving threats. She discovered that mastering Russian required understanding not just grammar and vocabulary, but the psychological landscape of a culture that values indirect communication and views language as a tool for concealing truth as much as revealing it. Most people see Elena's linguistic abilities as a party trick, useful for helping lost tourists or translating menus for confused visitors. They cannot comprehend that these skills represent years of classified training designed to protect national interests in an increasingly complex global environment. They do not understand that Elena's brain has been trained to function as a human translation algorithm capable of processing multiple languages simultaneously while extracting intelligence that others would miss entirely. But Elena's extraordinary abilities remain hidden behind the uniform of someone society expects to be unremarkable. The black slacks and white-collared shirt that mark her as service industry personnel create a kind of social invisibility that makes customers feel comfortable ignoring her presence during private conversations. People speak freely around waitresses, assuming that their personal dramas and business dealings hold no interest for someone whose job involves carrying plates and refilling water glasses. This invisibility has become Elena's greatest asset and her deepest frustration. She overhears fragments of conversations that reveal everything from marital infidelity to small-scale fraud, but her role requires pretending that she notices nothing beyond empty coffee cups and requests for extra napkins. She has learned to perform the careful dance of service industry workers, who must appear simultaneously attentive and oblivious, helpful but never intrusive, present but invisible. The customers who frequent Riverside Diner have no idea that their waitress served 3 tours in Afghanistan as a military intelligence specialist, where her linguistic abilities helped save countless lives by intercepting and translating communications between insurgent groups. They do not know that Elena earned commendations for excellence in field intelligence gathering, that her commanding officers considered her one of the most gifted linguists they had ever encountered, that her work contributed to operations that prevented attacks on American and Allied forces. They cannot imagine that the young woman pouring their coffee once sat in secure communications centers, listening to intercepted radio transmissions and providing real-time translation that allowed military strategists to anticipate enemy movements. They would never guess that Elena's quiet demeanor conceals training in psychological operations, cultural analysis, and threat assessment that makes her capable of reading people and situations with accuracy that borders on prescient. Elena left military service not because she lacked ability or dedication, but because she reached a point where the psychological cost of constant vigilance began affecting her ability to function in normal human relationships. 3 years of processing intelligence about people planning violence against soldiers she had trained with, worked alongside, considered family, created a level of emotional exhaustion that required stepping away from active duty to preserve her sanity. But transitioning from military intelligence to civilian employment proved more challenging than Elena anticipated. Her security clearance and specialized skills made her valuable to government contractors and private intelligence firms. But those positions required maintaining the same high-stress environment she needed to escape. Corporate intelligence work offered better pay, but demanded the same psychological intensity that had driven her to seek change in the first place. So Elena chose invisibility over intensity, minimum wage over maximum stress, knowing that working in a diner would allow her to use her intelligence training for observation rather than operation, surveillance rather than direct engagement. She could maintain her skills while rebuilding her emotional equilibrium, practicing the art of blending into civilian society while keeping her abilities sharp enough to return to intelligence work if circumstances required it. The irony of her situation strikes Elena daily, as she moves between tables filled with people discussing business deals, relationship problems, financial struggles, and political opinions with the casual assumption that their conversations carry no significance beyond their immediate social circle. They speak freely because they believe themselves safe in the anonymity of public spaces, protected by the social convention that service workers exist primarily as functional extensions of the restaurant environment. Elena knows better. She understands that intelligence flows through ordinary conversations like underground rivers, that casual meetings in unremarkable locations often carry more significance than formal conferences in secure facilities, that the most valuable secrets are frequently shared in places where people feel least guarded against observation. Her training taught her that real intelligence gathering happens not in dramatic confrontations between spies exchanging briefcases in shadowy parking garages, but in mundane environments where people lower their defenses and speak truthfully about things they should keep private. Restaurants, coffee shops, hotel lobbies, and airport waiting areas serve as informal intelligence centers where careful listeners can gather information that formal surveillance operations might miss entirely. But Elena maintains strict personal boundaries about what she observes and what she acts upon. Customer conversations about infidelity or tax evasion receive the same professional indifference she shows toward complaints about food temperature or requests for separate checks. She has learned to compartmentalize her abilities, using her training for personal protection and situational awareness, while refusing to exploit her advantages for personal gain or entertainment. This ethical framework has allowed Elena to find peace in work that others might consider beneath her abilities. She takes genuine satisfaction in providing excellent service, in creating positive experiences for people who often struggle with challenges far more serious than overcooked eggs or slow coffee refills. She understands that dignity comes not from job titles or salary levels, but from approaching every task with competence and integrity. Elena's colleagues at Riverside Diner appreciate her reliability and efficiency, but they know nothing about the experiences that shaped her work ethic. Marcus, the line cook who works morning shifts, notices that Elena never seems rattled by difficult customers or stressful situations, but he attributes this to natural temperament rather than training that prepared her for life-threatening scenarios. Jennifer, the night manager, appreciates Elena's ability to handle multiple tables during busy periods without losing track of individual customer needs, but she has no idea that this skill was developed in environments where forgetting details could result in catastrophic intelligence failures. The regular customers who interact with Elena multiple times per week see her as a pleasant, efficient waitress who remembers their preferences and maintains appropriate professional boundaries. They would be shocked to learn that their casual conversations about business trips, family problems, and personal opinions are being unconsciously processed by someone trained to identify patterns, assess threats, and extract actionable intelligence from seemingly innocent social interactions. Tonight, Elena's ability to remain invisible while maintaining extraordinary awareness will be tested in ways she never anticipated. A conversation she was never meant to understand will reveal information that challenges everything she thought she knew about civilian life, corporate ethics, and the distance between military service and private sector responsibility. The linguistic skills that once protected American soldiers will soon protect American citizens in ways that blur the lines between past service and present duty. Elena adjusts her ponytail and checks her section one more time, unconsciously performing. The visual sweep that identifies potential security concerns, customer needs, and environmental changes that might affect her ability to provide effective service. She has no idea that within hours, her training will transform her from invisible service worker to the focal point of events that will capture the attention of people powerful enough to change her life forever. The quiet competence that allows Elena to excel in her current role while maintaining emotional distance from her past will soon become the bridge that connects her civilian present to opportunities she never imagined possible. Tonight will prove that authentic excellence, even when performed in complete obscurity, possesses a gravity that eventually draws recognition from sources that matter more than daily tips or customer compliments. The lunch rush at Riverside Diner unfolds with the predictable chaos that Elena has learned to navigate like a seasoned ship captain, guiding her vessel through familiar but treacherous waters. The 11:30 a.m. wave brings construction workers whose calloused hands wrap around coffee, mugs with the desperate gratitude of people who have been swinging hammers since dawn. They order quickly, eat efficiently, and leave tips that reflect appreciation for service that doesn't judge their dirt-stained work clothes or time-pressed conversations about overtime schedules and family obligations. Elena moves between her tables with fluid precision, carrying multiple plates balanced on her forearms while maintaining mental inventories of each customer's specific needs and preferences. Table 4 needs extra hot sauce for their breakfast burrito. Table 7 is still deciding between the chicken sandwich and the daily soup special. Table 2 requires constant coffee refills because the elderly gentleman suffers from diabetes that makes him perpetually thirsty, but limits his food options to items that won't spike his blood sugar dangerously. Her uniform remains immaculate, despite the physical demands of serving dozens of meals during the busiest period of her shift. The white collared shirt stays crisp and unwrinkled, tucked precisely into black slacks that never show stains or wrinkles even after hours of constant movement. Her hair stays perfectly contained in a simple ponytail that never allows loose strands to fall across her face or interfere with her peripheral vision. Elena's appearance reflects military bearing disguised as civilian professionalism, attention to detail that most customers interpret as natural neatness rather than trained discipline. The kitchen operates behind her like a well-coordinated military unit, though the staff would laugh at such a comparison. Marcus manipulates multiple pans simultaneously while calling out order completions in a voice that carries clearly over the controlled chaos of a busy restaurant kitchen. Jenny, the prep cook, maintains steady production of chopped vegetables, sliced meats, and prepared garnishes that keep the lunch service flowing smoothly despite the constant stream of incoming orders. Elena's relationship with the kitchen staff reflects mutual respect built on competence rather than personal friendship. She submits orders clearly and accurately, minimizing confusion that could slow down service during peak periods. She picks up completed plates promptly, ensuring that food reaches customers while still hot enough to meet quality standards. She handles customer complaints with diplomacy that protects kitchen staff from unnecessary stress, while addressing legitimate concerns about food preparation or presentation. The dining room fills with the ambient noise of overlapping conversations, clinking silverware and industrial coffee machines working at maximum capacity. Elena processes this auditory environment unconsciously, her trained mind automatically filtering background noise while remaining alert to sounds that might indicate problems requiring immediate attention. A raised voice might signal customer dissatisfaction. The crash of dropped dishes could indicate accident or injury. Changes in kitchen volume might suggest equipment problems or staff conflicts that could affect service quality. Regular customers appreciate Elena's ability to anticipate their needs without intrusive conversation. Mr. Patterson receives his second cup of coffee exactly when his first cup reaches the halfway point, delivered without interrupting his careful reading of newspaper. Articles about local politics and community events. Sarah Martinez gets her soup served at precisely the temperature she prefers, neither too hot to eat quickly nor cool enough to suggest kitchen delay. These small acts of attentive service create customer loyalty that translates into consistent tips and positive word-of-mouth recommendations. Elena's linguistic abilities remain completely hidden during routine interactions with English-speaking customers. Her accent marks her as someone whose first language was probably Spanish, but customers rarely inquire about her background beyond casual pleasantries about weather or local events. They see her competence and efficiency, but lack curiosity about the experiences that created such professional polish in someone working for tips at a neighborhood diner. The afternoon shift brings a different demographic of customers with more leisure time for extended conversations and complex orders. Retired couples discuss travel plans over shared desserts, their voices carrying the comfortable intimacy of people who have spent decades learning to navigate life's challenges together. Business professionals conduct informal meetings over coffee and sandwiches, using the diner's casual atmosphere as neutral territory for discussions that might feel too formal in corporate conference rooms. Elena observes these interactions with the detached interest of someone trained to gather intelligence without emotional investment. She notices relationship dynamics, identifies potential conflicts, and tracks conversation topics that might reveal information about local business conditions or community concerns. But she maintains strict boundaries about acting on anything. She overhears, treating customer privacy as sacred even when people share information that could prove personally or professionally valuable. Her ability to remain invisible during private conversations has become both blessing and burden. Customers speak freely around her, assuming that their personal dramas and business dealings hold no interest for someone whose job involves carrying plates and maintaining clean tables. They discuss marital problems, financial difficulties, health concerns, and family conflicts with the casual assumption that service workers lack either the intelligence or inclination to process information beyond immediate job requirements. Elena has overheard conversations about insider trading that could have made her wealthy if she had chosen to act on the information. She has listened to discussions about government contracts that revealed corruption serious enough to warrant federal investigation. She has witnessed business deals that violated environmental regulations and personal relationships that involved various forms of fraud or deception. But her military training emphasized honor and integrity above personal gain, creating ethical boundaries that remain intact despite financial pressures that could justify more flexible moral standards. The Evening shift brings yet another transformation in customer demographics and conversation topics. Young professionals gather after work to decompress from corporate stress while discussing career ambitions, relationship challenges, and social plans for upcoming weekends. Families celebrate small victories like completed school projects or successful job interviews over comfort food that tastes like childhood security. Late-night diners include insomniacs, night shift workers, and people dealing with personal crises that make sleep impossible. Elena's training allows her to read emotional states and stress levels with accuracy that sometimes disturbs her. She can identify customers struggling with depression, anxiety, or relationship problems based on subtle changes in posture, speech patterns, and social interaction styles. Military intelligence work required understanding human psychology well, enough to predict behavior under stress, skills that translate effectively to recognizing when customers need extra patience, gentle encouragement, or simply respectful space to process whatever challenges they face. Her own psychological resilience, developed through experiences that tested her emotional limits under combat conditions, allows Elena to maintain professional composure while dealing with customers who project their frustrations onto service staff. She understands that rudeness often reflects personal pain rather than genuine dissatisfaction with food or service quality. This perspective helps her respond to difficult customers with patience that colleagues find remarkable but that she considers basic professional competence. The diner's physical environment tells stories about economic struggle and community. Resilience that Elena reads like intelligence reports about local conditions. Worn booth cushions indicate years of use by people who value affordable food over trendy atmosphere. Scratch tables bear witness to countless conversations about family problems, business challenges, and personal dreams that require neutral territory for honest discussion. The unchanged decor suggests either financial constraints or deliberate choice to maintain familiar comfort for customers who need predictability in at least one aspect of their lives. Elena takes pride in maintaining this environment as a safe space where people can find reliable service, consistent food quality, and respectful treatment, regardless of their economic status or social position. She understands that restaurants serve psychological as well as nutritional needs, providing social interaction for isolated people and familiar comfort for those dealing with uncertainty or stress in other areas of their lives. Her military experience taught her that mission success often depends on supporting roles rather than dramatic heroics. The soldiers who maintained equipment, prepared meals, and provided communication support were essential to operations that received public recognition and media attention. Similarly, Elena finds meaning in work that supports her community's daily functioning, even though her contributions remain largely invisible to people outside the service industry. Colleagues at Riverside Diner appreciate Elena's reliability and work ethic without understanding the experiences that shaped these qualities. Marcus knows that Elena never calls in sick, arrives early for every shift, and handles emergency situations with calm efficiency that makes his job easier. Jennifer trusts Elena to train new servers because she explains procedures clearly and demonstrates techniques with patience that newer employees find encouraging rather than intimidating. Elena's apartment, a modest one-bedroom unit 6 blocks from the diner, reflects the same attention to detail and efficient organization that characterizes her work performance. Military-style organization keeps everything in designated places that allow quick location during emergency situations. Books in 7 languages line shelves that also hold academic journals about linguistics, international relations, and cultural anthropology that she reads to maintain intellectual engagement with subjects that once defined her professional identity. Financial constraints. limit Elena's social activities to free community events and occasional meals at restaurants where her service industry experience helps her appreciate good treatment by fellow servers. She avoids bars and social gatherings where alcohol might compromise the emotional control that keeps painful memories from intruding on her carefully constructed civilian identity. Solitude has become both protective mechanism and personal preference, allowing her to process experiences at her own pace without pressure to explain or justify choices that others might find difficult to understand. Elena's relationship with her military past remains complex and evolving. Pride in her service combines with relief at escaping psychological pressures that were undermining her mental health. Satisfaction with her current work environment conflicts with awareness that her abilities remain significantly underutilized. Financial necessity dictates her current employment situation, but she maintains hope that eventual opportunities might allow her to contribute her linguistic skills to purposes that create meaningful positive impact. Tonight, we'll test Elena's ability to maintain the careful balance between visibility and invisibility that allows her to function effectively in civilian employment while preserving skills that could prove valuable in unexpected circumstances. The conversation she's about to overhear will challenge her understanding of ethical boundaries and force her to make choices that blur the lines between past service and present responsibility. The transformation of Elena's life began during her final year at Portland State University, where she studied international business with the naive optimism of someone who believed that cross-cultural understanding could bridge political divisions and create opportunities for peaceful cooperation between nations. Her academic record reflected exceptional aptitude for languages and cultural analysis, achievements that caught the attention of military recruiters who recognized rare talent when they encountered it. Elena's childhood in East Portland had been shaped by financial struggle and cultural complexity that prepared her for challenges most college students never faced. Her grandmother, Maria Vasquez, had immigrated from Guadalajara with limited English and unlimited determination to create better opportunities for her family in America. Maria worked double shifts at a commercial laundry while teaching Elena Spanish grammar, cultural traditions, and the importance of maintaining dignity regardless of economic circumstances. Elena's mother, Carmen, balanced two jobs throughout. Elena's childhood, cleaning office buildings at night and working as a teaching assistant at an elementary school during the day. Carmen never completed her own college education, but she understood that academic achievement could provide her daughter with choices that previous generations of Vasquez women had never possessed. Every sacrifice Carmen made, every social event she missed, every personal comfort she denied herself was calculated to ensure that Elena would have opportunities to transcend the economic limitations that had defined their family's experience in America. The military recruiter who approached Elena during her junior year presented service as an opportunity to use her linguistic abilities while serving her country and earning educational benefits that would eliminate the student loan debt threatening to define her post-graduation financial situation. Captain Rebecca Morrison explained that Elena's combination of cultural sensitivity, academic excellence, and multilingual capabilities made her an ideal candidate for military intelligence work that could make real differences in protecting American service members and advancing national security interests. Elena's decision to enlist after graduation reflected both patriotic idealism and practical necessity. The Montgomery GI Bill would cover graduate school expenses and provide living stipend support that could allow her to pursue advanced degrees without the crushing debt burden that affected most of her classmates. Military service offered structure, purpose, and professional development opportunities that civilian employment might not provide immediately after college graduation. Basic training at Fort Leonard Wood challenged Elena physically and mentally in ways that civilian education had not prepared her to handle. The psychological pressure of constant evaluation, the physical demands of military fitness standards, and the emotional adjustment to institutional life that prioritized group cohesion over individual preferences tested her commitment to choices that sometimes felt like mistakes during particularly difficult moments. But Elena discovered that military discipline suited her personality and learning style in unexpected ways. The clear expectations, structured environment, and merit-based advancement system rewarded competence and dedication without the political complexities that often characterized civilian workplaces. She excelled at following procedures, meeting deadlines, and maintaining standards that some recruits found oppressive, but that Elena experienced as liberating clarity about performance expectations. Advanced individual training at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California, revealed Elena's extraordinary linguistic aptitude to instructors who specialized in developing language skills for intelligence applications. Her ability to absorb grammatical structures, master pronunciation patterns, and understand cultural contexts that influenced communication styles exceeded anything her teachers had encountered in decades of training military linguists for overseas deployment. Elena's first foreign language assignment involved intensive Arabic training that prepared her for deployment to Afghanistan, where her linguistic abilities would support intelligence operations designed to identify and neutralize threats against American and Allied forces. The cultural immersion component of her training required learning not just vocabulary and grammar, but psychological frameworks that influenced how Arabic speakers structured their thinking about relationships, authority, truth, and communication. The transformation from college student to military intelligence specialist required Elena to develop emotional resilience that civilian education had not demanded. Processing intercepted communications meant constant exposure to conversations about violence planned against people she had trained with, worked alongside, and considered extended family. Her job required maintaining professional objectivity while translating discussions about attacks that could kill soldiers she cared about personally. Elena's deployment to Forward Operating Base Chapman in eastern Afghanistan placed her in one of the most dangerous regions of the country, where intelligence gathering required constant vigilance and split-second decision-making that could determine whether missions succeeded or failed catastrophically. Her workstation in the communications center processed real-time radio intercepts, phone conversations, and digital communications that provided early warning about insurgent activities and planned attacks. The psychological intensity of her deployment experience challenged Elena's mental health in ways that military training had not fully prepared her to handle. 12-hour shifts analyzing conversations about planned violence created chronic stress that affected her sleep patterns, social relationships, and ability to find enjoyment in activities that had previously provided relaxation and pleasure. The constant awareness of danger, combined with responsibility for information that could save or cost lives, generated anxiety levels that required professional intervention to manage effectively. Elena's linguistic abilities proved invaluable during several operations that prevented significant casualties among American and Allied forces. Her translation of intercepted communications provided advance warning about improvised explosive device placements that allowed explosive ordnance disposal teams to neutralize threats before convoys encountered them. Her cultural analysis of captured documents revealed insurgent recruitment strategies that helped military leaders develop more effective counterinsurgency approaches. But success in military intelligence work came with psychological costs that Elena had not anticipated. When she enlisted, The emotional burden of processing information about planned violence against people she cared about created trauma that manifested in hypervigilance, sleep disorders, and relationship difficulties that persisted long after her deployment ended. She discovered that protecting others through intelligence work required sacrificing aspects of her own mental health that might never fully recover. Elena's second deployment to Afghanistan involved assignment to a joint NATO intelligence operation, where her linguistic abilities supported international cooperation between American, British, German, and French forces attempting to coordinate responses to evolving threats. This assignment required learning additional languages and cultural frameworks, while managing intelligence sharing protocols that involve multiple national security priorities and diplomatic considerations. The multilingual environment of joint operations revealed Elena's exceptional ability to function as a cultural bridge between allied forces whose different approaches to intelligence gathering and operational planning sometimes created friction that undermined mission effectiveness. Her skill at explaining American procedures to European allies and translating European perspectives for American commanders made her invaluable to operations that required seamless international cooperation. Elena's commendations for excellence in field intelligence work reflected recognition from commanding officers who understood that her contributions had prevented attacks and saved lives in ways that would never receive public acknowledgement or media attention. Military intelligence success requires secrecy that prevents heroes from receiving recognition they deserve, creating psychological challenges for people whose most meaningful achievements must remain classified indefinitely. The decision to leave military service after her third deployment reflected Elena's recognition that continued exposure to traumatic information was affecting her ability to maintain healthy relationships and find meaning in civilian activities. Post-traumatic stress symptoms were interfering with her sleep, her social interactions, and her capacity to imagine a future beyond constant vigilance and threat assessment. Elena's transition from military intelligence to civilian employment proved more challenging than she had anticipated during her final months of active duty. Her security clearance and specialized skills made her valuable to government contractors and private intelligence firms, but those positions required maintaining the same high-stress environment that had prompted her decision to leave military service. Corporate intelligence work offered better compensation, but demanded psychological intensity that Elena needed to escape rather than continue. The gap between Elena's abilities and her current employment situation reflects broader problems with military to civilian career transitions that affect thousands of veterans whose specialized skills do not translate easily to private sector opportunities. Elena's linguistic abilities and cultural analysis training represent extraordinary value that most civilian employers cannot recognize, evaluate, or compensate appropriately. Financial necessity forced Elena to accept employment that provided steady income, while she developed strategies for utilizing her skills in ways that would not recreate the psychological pressures that had motivated her transition from military service. Working at Riverside Diner allowed her to practice social interaction, maintain economic independence, and rebuild emotional equilibrium while keeping her abilities sharp enough to return to intelligence work if circumstances required such a decision. Elena's family understood her military service in terms of patriotic duty and educational opportunity, but they could not comprehend the psychological costs of intelligence work or the challenges involved in transitioning specialized military skills to civilian employment. Her mother's pride in Elena's service, combined with confusion about why someone with her abilities and training would choose to work as a waitress rather than pursuing corporate opportunities that seemed more consistent with her education and experience. The isolation. Elena experienced in civilian employment reflected the difficulty of explaining military intelligence work to people who lacked security clearances or cultural frameworks for understanding the psychological demands of processing classified information about threats against American interests. Her colleagues at the diner appreciated her reliability and efficiency, but could not imagine the experiences that had shaped her work ethic and professional standards. Elena's apartment contained reminders of her military service that she could not display publicly without violating security protocols that remained binding even after her transition to civilian status. Commendations, photographs, and personal items from her deployments stayed hidden in boxes that she opened occasionally when nostalgia overcame concerns about emotional triggering that such memories might provoke. The contrast between Elena's current circumstances and her potential opportunities created daily tension between financial necessity and professional ambition that she managed through careful compartmentalization of different aspects of her identity. At work, she functioned as a competent service industry employee. At home, she maintained intellectual engagement with linguistic and cultural subjects through academic reading that kept her skills current. In her community, she volunteered with veterans services organizations that provided social connection with people who understood military experience without requiring explanation or justification. Tonight will test Elena's ability to maintain separation between her military past and civilian present in ways that challenge everything she has learned about ethical boundaries and personal responsibility. The conversation she is about to overhear will force her to confront questions about whether her obligations to protect American interests ended with her discharge from active duty or continue as long as she possesses abilities that could prevent harm to innocent people. The evening shift at Riverside Diner typically begins its descent into quieter rhythms around 8 o'clock. When the dinner rush subsides and the clientele transitions from families seeking affordable meals to individuals who treat restaurants as temporary refugees from loneliness, insomnia, or domestic situations that make home feel less comfortable than public spaces filled with strangers. Elena has learned to read the emotional landscape of late-night dining, recognizing the subtle differences between customers who choose solitude and those who endure it reluctantly. Tonight carries an unusual tension that Elena cannot immediately identify, but that her trained instincts recognize as significant. The atmospheric pressure feels different, charged with undercurrents that suggest events beyond normal restaurant operations are about to unfold. Her military experience taught her to trust intuitive warnings that preceded dangerous situations, psychological alerts that developed through exposure to environments where survival depended on recognizing threats before they fully materialized. Table 12 receives new occupants at exactly 8:47 p.m. Two men whose appearance and behavior immediately trigger Elena's professional assessment protocols. The first man, approximately 50 years old with silver hair and expensive clothing that suggests corporate executive status, carries himself with authority that expects accommodation rather than requesting it. His companion appears younger, perhaps mid-30s, with the alert posture and scanning eye movements that Elena recognizes as either security training or law enforcement background. Both men choose seats that provide clear views of the restaurant's entrances and exits, positioning themselves with tactical awareness that casual diners would never consider. Their initial conversation occurs in voices too low for normal eavesdropping, but Elena's enhanced hearing, developed through years of processing audio intelligence in noisy combat environments, allows her to catch fragments that suggest business rather than social interaction. The older man orders coffee and apple pie with specific preferences about serving temperature and presentation that indicate familiarity with high-end dining experiences. His younger companion requests only black coffee, declining food with the manner of someone whose attention remains focused on environmental monitoring rather than personal comfort. Elena delivers their orders with professional efficiency while noting details that might prove relevant if their presence indicates developing security concerns. Their conversation resumes after Elena withdraws to a respectful distance, but the acoustic properties of the corner booth they selected create sound reflection patterns that carry their voices to her workstation near the coffee machines. Elena's trained ability to process multiple audio streams simultaneously allows her to monitor their discussion while maintaining normal service activities for other customers throughout her section. The conversation begins with routine business. Topics delivered in English that suggests both men are native speakers despite occasional technical terminology that indicates international commercial interests. Elena processes their discussion about shipping schedules, customs documentation, and regulatory compliance issues while refilling water glasses and delivering dessert orders to nearby tables. Nothing in their initial exchange triggers specific security concerns beyond general vigilance that Elena maintains regarding all customer interactions. At 9:23 p.m., their conversation undergoes a dramatic transformation that immediately captures Elena's complete attention, despite her efforts to maintain professional focus on routine service activities. The older man receives a phone call that he answers in French, switching languages with fluency that suggests extensive international business experience or possible European background. Elena's French comprehension, refined through military intelligence training and NATO liaison work, allows her to understand every word, despite his apparent assumption that linguistic privacy protects sensitive information from casual observation. The phone conversation reveals details about international financial transactions that violate multiple federal regulations governing currency exchange, tax reporting, and anti-money laundering protocols. Elena recognizes terminology associated with offshore banking, shell corporation structures, and invoice manipulation techniques used to disguise the source and destination of funds that circumvent legitimate business channels. Her military intelligence background included training on financial crimes that support terrorist organizations and hostile foreign governments, experience that allows her to identify illegal activities that most civilians would not recognize. But the conversation becomes significantly more alarming when the older man begins discussing timeline modifications for operations that involve national security implications beyond simple financial fraud. Elena's French comprehension reveals planning for activities that could compromise American defense contractors, military technology development programs, and classified research initiatives that protect strategic advantages in international competition with hostile foreign powers. The man's French conversation includes references to specific military installations, defense contractor personnel, and technological capabilities that should remain classified according to protocols Elena learned during her intelligence training. Someone is providing foreign interests with information that could undermine American military preparedness, compromise ongoing operations, or expose service members to increased danger during overseas deployments. Elena continues performing routine service activities while processing information that challenges everything she understood about the distance between military intelligence work and civilian employment. The conversation she is overhearing suggests active espionage operations targeting American defense interests, conducted by people who feel secure enough to discuss sensitive information in public spaces, where they assume linguistic barriers protect their communications from detection. The younger man contributes to their discussion in accented English that Elena identifies as Eastern European, possibly Russian, or Ukrainian, based on specific phonetic patterns that her linguistic training allows her to distinguish with considerable accuracy. His comments reveal familiarity with American defense contracting procedures, security clearance processes, and personnel information that suggests either legitimate access through authorized channels or successful penetration of systems designed to protect national security information. Elena's military oath to protect American interests did not expire with her discharge from active duty, but her current civilian status creates ethical and legal complexities about appropriate responses to information obtained through unauthorized eavesdropping during private conversations. Her intelligence training emphasized strict protocols about information handling, evidence collection, and coordination with appropriate authorities that prevent individual action that might compromise larger investigations or legal proceedings. The conversation reveals planning for activities scheduled to occur within the next 72 hours, timeline constraints that eliminate opportunities for lengthy deliberation about appropriate responses to information that could prevent significant damage to American interests. Elena recognizes that her linguistic abilities have placed her in possession of intelligence that could prove crucial to preventing foreign intelligence operations targeting American defense capabilities. But acting on information obtained through restaurant eavesdropping requires Elena to expose her linguistic abilities and intelligence background in ways that could attract attention from hostile foreign services seeking to identify and neutralize American intelligence assets. Even former military intelligence personnel remain targets for foreign recruitment, intimidation, or elimination if their abilities and knowledge become known to hostile organizations. Elena's internal conflict between duty and personal security intensifies as the conversation reveals additional details about planned operations that could compromise specific military personnel, defense contractors, and research programs that protect American strategic advantages. Her silence protects her personal safety, but potentially enables activities that could harm people who dedicated their lives to protecting American interests and democratic values. The two men complete their discussion and prepare to leave at 10:15 p.m., their conversation having revealed sufficient information to allow Elena to understand the scope, timeline, and potential impact of operations that appear designed to transfer American military technology and strategic information to foreign interests that would use such intelligence to develop countermeasures against American military capabilities. Elena processes payment for their orders while maintaining professional composure that conceals the psychological turmoil created by information that challenges her understanding of ethical responsibilities, legal obligations, and personal security considerations. Her training provided clear protocols for handling classified information within military channels, but civilian circumstances require decision-making frameworks that her experience did not include. The departure of the two men leaves Elena alone, with information that could prevent significant damage to American defense interests if communicated to appropriate authorities through channels that protect her identity and minimize personal risk. But exposing foreign intelligence operations requires revealing her linguistic abilities and military background in ways that could transform her from invisible service worker to potential target for hostile foreign services seeking to neutralize threats to their operations. Elena's shift continues until closing time at midnight. Routine activities that provide psychological cover for processing information and evaluating options that balance duty against personal security, national interests against individual survival, moral obligations against practical constraints that civilian status imposes on someone whose abilities exceed her apparent authority to act on critical intelligence. The conversation she overheard represents exactly the type of threat that her military training prepared her to identify and counter, but civilian circumstances complicate responses that would have been straightforward within military command structures. Elena must decide whether her obligations to protect American interests continue beyond her military service, or whether civilian status releases her from responsibilities that could expose her to dangers that extended far beyond anything she faced during combat deployments. The weight of classified information obtained through chance encounter creates psychological pressure that Elena recognizes as similar to stress she experienced during military intelligence operations, but without institutional support systems that helped her process traumatic information and make decisions about appropriate responses. She faces choices that will determine whether her transition to civilian life represents escape from intelligence work or simply its continuation through different channels and under different constraints. Tonight, we'll test Elena's understanding of duty, loyalty, and personal responsibility in ways that challenge everything she learned about the relationship between military service and civilian obligations. The information she possesses could prevent attacks on American interests, but using that information requires exposing herself to risks that civilian status was supposed to eliminate from her daily experience. Elena's hands remained perfectly steady as she cleared the last table of her shift, but beneath her composed exterior, her mind operated with the tactical precision that had once saved lives in Afghanistan. The conversation she had overheard in flawless French had triggered every alarm system developed through 3 years of processing enemy communications. And now she faced a decision that would define whether her transition to civilian life represented genuine escape from intelligence work or merely its continuation under different circumstances. The closing procedures at Riverside Diner provided familiar routine that allowed Elena to process the implications of what she had learned while maintaining the appearance of normal end-of-shift activities. She wiped down tables with methodical attention to detail, counted receipts with mathematical precision, and secured the dining room with the same thoroughness she had once applied to protecting classified communications equipment in combat zones. But her trained mind simultaneously analyzed the intelligence she had gathered, evaluating its significance and considering response options that balanced duty against personal security. Elena's military experience had taught her that the most dangerous intelligence often arrived through seemingly routine encounters, rather than dramatic confrontations between opposing forces. The conversation she had overheard represented exactly the type of threat that required immediate action to prevent significant damage to American interests. But civilian circumstances complicated responses that would have been straightforward within military command structures, where clear protocols existed for handling time-sensitive intelligence. The two men who had unknowingly revealed their espionage activities assumed that linguistic barriers protected their communications from detection by restaurant staff who appeared to lack the cultural background necessary for understanding French conversations about international financial transactions and defense contractor penetration. Their confidence in public anonymity reflected the same operational security failures that Elena had observed in enemy communications throughout her military service, overconfidence that created vulnerabilities for exploitation by skilled intelligence professionals. Elena's French comprehension, refined through NATO liaison work and cultural immersion training, had allowed her to understand not just the literal content of their conversation, but the cultural and psychological frameworks that shaped their communication patterns. The older man's linguistic choices revealed European business education and probable connections to French or Belgian commercial interests. His younger companion's accented English suggested Eastern European background with specific phonetic patterns that indicated possible Russian or Ukrainian origins. But beyond identifying their probable backgrounds, Elena had recognized specific terminology associated with defense contractor infiltration, classified technology transfer, and financial mechanisms designed to circumvent federal regulations governing international business transactions that involved national security implications. Her military intelligence training had included extensive education about foreign intelligence operations targeting American defense capabilities, experience that allowed her to identify illegal activities that most civilians would dismiss as routine business discussions. The timeline revealed through their conversation created urgency that eliminated opportunities for lengthy deliberation about appropriate responses to information that could prevent foreign intelligence operations scheduled to occur within 72 hours. Elena understood that some intelligence required immediate action to maintain value, that delayed responses often meant missed opportunities to prevent attacks or protect American personnel from operations designed to compromise their safety and effectiveness. Elena's internal conflict reflected broader challenges that affected thousands of military veterans whose specialized training created ongoing obligations that civilian status complicated rather than eliminated. Her oath to protect American interests had not expired with her discharge from active duty, but civilian circumstances required navigation of legal and ethical frameworks that military service had not included. Acting on intelligence obtained through unauthorized eavesdropping created potential legal complications that could compromise any investigation or prosecution that might result from her information. But Eleanor's military experience had also taught her that moral obligations sometimes required accepting personal risk to prevent greater harm to innocent people. That individual courage often determined whether intelligence capabilities protected or failed the people they were designed to serve. The conversation she had overheard revealed planning for activities that could compromise specific military personnel, defense contractors, and research programs that protected American strategic advantages in international competition with hostile foreign powers. Elena completed her closing duties while developing a plan that would allow her to communicate critical intelligence to appropriate authorities while minimizing personal exposure to retaliation from hostile foreign services that might identify her as a threat to their operations. Her military training had emphasized careful documentation, secure communication protocols, and coordination with established intelligence channels that could process information without compromising sources or ongoing investigations. The challenge lay in translating military procedures to civilian circumstances that lacked institutional support systems for handling classified information or protecting intelligence assets from foreign retaliation. Elena needed to identify appropriate authorities who could act on her information while maintaining operational security that protected her identity and minimized risks associated with exposing foreign intelligence operations to people who might lack experience with international espionage activities. Elena's apartment provided secure environment for activities that required privacy and concentration beyond what public spaces could offer. Her military-trained attention to operational security had influenced her housing choices, selecting a location that offered multiple exit routes, limited surveillance opportunities for hostile observers, and neighbors whose schedules provided natural cover for activities that might attract unwanted attention if conducted in more visible circumstances. The documentation process required Elena to reconstruct the conversation she had overheard with accuracy that would satisfy legal standards for evidence while protecting her methods and identity from exposure that could compromise her safety Her military experience with intelligence reporting provided frameworks for organizing information that distinguished between confirmed facts, reasonable inferences, and speculative assessments that required additional verification before action could be taken. Elena's linguistic training allowed her to provide precise translations that captured not just literal meanings, but cultural and psychological nuances that influenced interpretation of ambiguous statements or technical terminology that might require specialized knowledge for accurate understanding. Her report included phonetic analysis that could help identify specific individuals through voice recognition technology and cultural background assessment that might assist in determining their probable origins and organizational affiliations. The technology available to Elena through civilian channels limited her communication options compared to secure military systems she had used during active duty. But her operational security training provided techniques for using commercial communications infrastructure while minimizing opportunities for interception by hostile foreign services that routinely monitored American civilian communications for intelligence value. Elena's decision to contact federal authorities required careful selection of appropriate agencies with jurisdiction over international espionage activities and capabilities for rapid response to time-sensitive intelligence that could prevent foreign operations against American defense interests. Her military experience had included coordination with FBI counterintelligence divisions, CIA domestic security offices, and Defense Intelligence Agency liaison personnel who specialized in protecting military technology from foreign intelligence penetration. But Elena's civilian status complicated direct communication with intelligence agencies that might question her authority to possess information about ongoing foreign operations or suspect her of involvement in activities she was attempting to report. Her approach required establishing credibility while maintaining operational security that protected her identity from exposure that could attract retaliation from foreign services seeking to eliminate threats to their operations. Elena's military commendations and service record could verify her background and establish her credibility with federal authorities. But accessing those records required revealing her identity in ways that eliminated anonymity she needed to maintain personal security. A solution involved using veteran services organizations as intermediaries who could vouch for her background while providing buffer between her identity and federal agencies that might require verification of her military experience and security clearance history. The communication Elena prepared for federal authorities included sufficient detail to allow verification of her information through independent intelligence sources, while protecting operational methods that hostile foreign services could use. To identify weaknesses in American intelligence gathering capabilities, her military training had emphasized information sanitization techniques that preserved intelligence value while minimizing risks associated with revealing sources and methods to people who lacked appropriate security clearances. Elena's report identified specific financial institutions, communication methods, and timeline factors that federal investigators could verify through existing surveillance capabilities without requiring additional information from her that might compromise her safety or expose her continued involvement in intelligence activities. Her military experience had taught her that the most valuable intelligence often provided starting points for investigations rather than complete solutions to complex operational challenges. The psychological stress of processing information about foreign intelligence operations targeting American interests reactivated trauma responses that Elena had developed during military service. But her civilian circumstances lacked institutional support systems that had helped her manage similar stress during active duty. She experienced hypervigilance, sleep disruption, and anxiety symptoms that reminded her why she had chosen to leave military intelligence work for employment that seemed to offer psychological distance from national security responsibilities. But Elena's military training had also taught her that some responsibilities transcended personal comfort or convenience, that individual sacrifice sometimes prevented greater harm to innocent people who depended on intelligence professionals. To identify and counter threats against American interests and democratic values, a decision to act on intelligence obtained through chance encounter reflected values that military service had reinforced rather than created, moral frameworks that civilian employment had not eliminated despite her efforts to escape the psychological pressures associated with intelligence work. Elena's preparation for contacting federal authorities required accepting that her transition to civilian life might not provide the complete separation from intelligence responsibilities that she had sought when leaving military service. Her linguistic abilities and cultural training represented ongoing assets that hostile foreign services would seek to neutralize if they became aware of her capabilities and potential threat to their operations against American interests. The choice Elena faced reflected broader questions about the relationship between military service and civilian obligations that affected thousands of veterans whose specialized training created ongoing responsibilities that extended beyond their active duty commitments. Her decision would determine whether expertise developed through military service represented temporary assignment or lifetime obligation to protect American interests, regardless of personal circumstances or preferred career directions. Elena's final review of the intelligence report she had prepared confirmed that she possessed information capable of preventing foreign operations against American defense interests. But acting on that information required accepting risks that civilian status was supposed to eliminate from her daily experience. Her military oath to protect American interests had not included expiration clauses that released her from obligations when personal safety or career preferences suggested alternative courses of action. Elena secured communication to the FBI. Portland Field Office initiated a cascade of events that began unfolding at 3:47 a.m. when Special Agent David Walsh received an encrypted message flagged by automated systems as containing keywords associated with foreign intelligence threats against American defense infrastructure. Walsh, a 15-year veteran of counterintelligence operations, had processed thousands of similar tips that ranged from paranoid conspiracy theories to legitimate intelligence that prevented significant damage to national security interests. The initial assessment of Elena's report triggered immediate escalation protocols that brought together analysts from multiple federal agencies within 90 minutes of receipt. The specificity of financial terminology, accurate identification of defense contractor vulnerabilities, and precise timeline information suggested either authentic intelligence from a credible source or sophisticated disinformation designed to waste federal resources and create false leads that could distract from actual foreign operations. FBI linguists confirmed that Elena's French translations demonstrated native-level fluency combined with cultural knowledge that required extensive education or professional experience with francophone business environments. The phonetic analysis. She provided matched voice recognition patterns from previous surveillance operations, targeting Eastern European intelligence services, suggesting that at least one individual in her report had appeared in prior federal investigations of foreign espionage activities. Agent Walsh's investigation into Elena's background revealed military service record that immediately elevated her report's credibility while raising questions about how a former military intelligence specialist had encountered active foreign operations during civilian employment at a neighborhood restaurant. Elena's security clearance history commendations for excellence in field intelligence and linguistic training provided exactly the qualifications necessary for accurate assessment of the activities she had reported. But Elena's current employment situation created operational security concerns that complicated federal response to her intelligence. The gap between her military capabilities and civilian circumstances suggested either deliberate cover for ongoing intelligence activities or personal circumstances that had forced someone with extraordinary abilities into employment that provided no outlet for her specialized skills and training. Agent Walsh needed to determine whether Elena represented an asset to be protected or a potential security risk requiring investigation. The verification process for Elena's intelligence began with cross-referencing her information against existing federal surveillance of known foreign intelligence operatives and suspected financial networks used to support espionage activities targeting American defense contractors. Initial database searches confirmed that several individuals and organizations mentioned in Elena's report had appeared in previous investigations, providing independent corroboration that increased confidence in her assessment of the situation. Financial intelligence analysts identified banking patterns that matched Elena's description of money laundering techniques designed to circumvent federal regulations governing international transactions involving defense-related technologies. The specific offshore accounts, shell corporations, and invoice manipulation strategies she had detected through restaurant eavesdropping corresponded to sophisticated financial networks that federal investigators had been monitoring for months without identifying their operational purposes. Defense Intelligence Agency liaison officers confirmed that the military installations and contractor personnel mentioned in Elena's report represented legitimate targets for foreign intelligence services seeking to compromise American technological advantages in areas ranging from cybersecurity to advanced weapons systems. The timeline she had provided matched intelligence community assessments about probable foreign operations that could significantly impact American military preparedness if successfully executed. Agent Walsh's decision to conduct personal interview with Elena required operational security measures that protected both her identity and the ongoing federal investigation that her intelligence had initiated. The meeting location, a secure conference room at the Portland Veterans Affairs Office, provided cover for Elena's presence while ensuring that surveillance detection could identify any hostile foreign services that might be monitoring federal facilities for signs of counterintelligence activities. Elena's appearance at the scheduled meeting demonstrated the same professional composure that had characterized her military service. But Agent Walsh recognized stress indicators that suggested psychological pressure associated with transitioning from civilian invisibility to active participation in federal counterintelligence operations. Her military training provided frameworks for handling classified information and operational security requirements. But civilian circumstances had not prepared her for renewed involvement in activities that could expose her to retaliation from hostile foreign services. The interview process revealed Elena's extraordinary recall for details that most civilians would forget within hours of overhearing random conversations. Her military intelligence training had developed memory techniques that allowed precise reconstruction of complex information even under stressful circumstances, capabilities that provided federal investigators with intelligence quality that exceeded what traditional surveillance methods typically produced from similar encounters. Elena's linguistic analysis provided cultural insights that helped federal analysts understand the probable organizational structure and operational methods employed by the foreign intelligence network she had detected. Her assessment of speech Patterns, cultural references, and technical terminology revealed sophisticated understanding of both American defense contracting procedures and international financial systems used to support espionage activities. But Elena's psychological profile indicated someone struggling with post-traumatic stress symptoms that civilian employment had helped manage but not eliminate. Agent Walsh recognized that renewed involvement in intelligence activities could exacerbate mental health challenges that had motivated Elena's transition from military service to work that provided psychological distance from national security responsibilities and their associated emotional burdens. The operational plan developed from Elena's intelligence required coordination between FBI counterintelligence divisions, Treasury Department financial crimes units, and Defense Intelligence Agency technology protection offices that specialized in preventing foreign access to classified military research and development programs. Elena's information provided starting points for investigations that could prevent significant damage to American interests while identifying foreign intelligence networks that posed ongoing threats to national security. Federal surveillance of individuals identified in Elena's report confirmed ongoing activities that matched her assessment of foreign operations targeting American defense contractors. Electronic monitoring revealed additional communications that provided details about planned technology transfers, personnel recruitment efforts, and financial mechanisms designed to support long-term espionage activities against multiple defense-related organizations and research institutions. The investigation expanded to include coordination with international law enforcement agencies whose jurisdictions included financial institutions and corporate entities that appeared in the foreign intelligence network Elena had identified. Her initial restaurant encounter had revealed connections to espionage activities that spanned multiple countries and involved sophisticated coordination between hostile foreign services and criminal organizations that specialized in financial crimes. Elena's ongoing cooperation with federal investigators required security measures that protected her identity while allowing access to her linguistic abilities and cultural analysis skills that proved invaluable for understanding intercepted communications and planning appropriate responses to foreign intelligence operations. Her apartment received security upgrades that included surveillance detection equipment and emergency communication systems that could provide rapid federal response if hostile services identified her as a threat to their operations. The psychological impact of returning to intelligence work manifested in symptoms that Elena recognized from her military service, but had hoped to leave behind through civilian employment. Sleep disruption, hypervigilance, and anxiety responses that civilian life had helped diminish returned as her involvement in federal counterintelligence activities increased her exposure to information about threats against American interests and personnel. Agent Walsh arranged for Elena to receive psychological support through federal employee assistance programs that specialized in helping intelligence personnel manage stress associated with classified work and ongoing security threats. The mental health professionals assigned to her case had experience with military veterans whose specialized training created ongoing obligations that civilian status complicated rather than eliminated. Elena's financial situation improved dramatically when federal authorities offered compensation for her consulting services that reflected the true value of her linguistic abilities and intelligence analysis skills. The contrast between her restaurant wages and federal consulting fees highlighted the economic injustice that affected thousands of military veterans whose specialized capabilities remained underutilized in civilian employment markets that could not recognize or appropriately compensate their extraordinary abilities. But financial compensation could not address the fundamental conflict between Elena's desire for psychological peace and her moral obligations to use her abilities for protecting American interests when circumstances required her involvement in intelligence activities. Her military training had created ethical frameworks that civilian employment had not eliminated, responsibilities that extended beyond personal preferences or career objectives. The federal investigation triggered by Elena's intelligence revealed foreign intelligence penetration of American defense contractors that extended far beyond the activities she had initially detected through restaurant eavesdropping. Her chance encounter with two operatives had exposed sophisticated networks that involved dozens of individuals and organizations working to compromise American technological advantages in areas critical to national security and military effectiveness. Elena's transformation from invisible restaurant server to key federal intelligence asset reflected broader themes about hidden talent, overlooked capabilities, and the economic injustices that prevented society from benefiting from extraordinary abilities that circumstances had forced into inadequate employment situations. Her linguistic skills and cultural analysis training represented exactly the capabilities that federal agencies needed for protecting American interests in increasingly complex international security environments. The recognition Elena received from federal authorities validated abilities that civilian employment had undervalued while creating opportunities for meaningful contribution to national security objectives that aligned with values she had developed through military service. But renewed involvement in intelligence work also reactivated psychological challenges that she had sought to escape through transition to civilian employment that provided distance from responsibilities associated with protecting classified information and countering foreign threats. Elena's decision to accept ongoing federal consulting arrangements required balancing personal well-being against professional obligations that civilian status had not eliminated. Her military oath to protect American interests remained binding, regardless of employment circumstances. But civilian life had provided psychological benefits that intelligence work threatened to undermine through exposure to information about ongoing threats and foreign operations targeting American personnel and interests. The federal investigation that Elena's intelligence had initiated demonstrated the ongoing value of military training and specialized capabilities that civilian circumstances often failed to utilize appropriately. Her chance encounter with foreign operatives had revealed threats that traditional surveillance methods had not detected, providing federal authorities with intelligence that prevented significant damage to American defense capabilities and protected personnel whose safety depended on maintaining technological advantages that foreign services sought to compromise. The federal investigation triggered by Elena's intelligence reached its dramatic crescendo on a Thursday morning when coordinated law enforcement operations simultaneously targeted 17 locations across 4 states, dismantling what FBI Director Catherine Reynolds would later describe as the most sophisticated foreign intelligence network penetrating American defense contractors since the Cold War. Elena watched the news coverage from her apartment, recognizing locations and individuals whose conversations she had translated during weeks of intensive cooperation with federal authorities. The scale of the operation that emerged from her chance encounter at Riverside Diner exceeded anything Elena had imagined when she first overheard 2 men discussing suspicious activities in French. Federal investigators had uncovered evidence of systematic technology theft involving classified military research, advanced weapons systems, and cybersecurity protocols that foreign intelligence services had been acquiring through carefully orchestrated infiltration of defense contractor personnel and financial systems. Agent Walsh arrived at Elena's apartment at 8:30 a.m. with news that would transform her understanding of her own role in preventing what national security experts were calling a catastrophic breach of American military technological advantages. The arrests included 12 foreign intelligence operatives, 6 American defense contractor employees who had been providing classified information in exchange for financial compensation, and 7 individuals involved in money laundering operations that had facilitated technology transfers worth an estimated $200 million. But the most significant arrest involved the older man Elena had observed at the restaurant, whose true identity as Colonel Viktor Petrov represented a breakthrough in federal efforts to identify and neutralize Russian intelligence assets operating within American commercial and defense sectors. Petrov's capture provided access to intelligence networks that had been targeting American technological capabilities for over a decade, operations that had successfully compromised multiple defense programs before Elena's linguistic abilities detected their activities. The younger man from the restaurant, identified as Dmitry Volkov, had been operating under diplomatic cover through the Russian consulate in San Francisco while coordinating technology acquisition operations that involved systematic penetration of Silicon Valley defense contractors and Pacific Northwest aerospace companies. His arrest revealed communication networks that connected Russian intelligence services to Chinese and Iranian operatives who were collaborating in efforts to acquire American military technologies. Elena's translation of their French conversation had provided federal investigators with code words, operational schedules, and communication protocols that allowed comprehensive mapping of foreign intelligence networks targeting American defense interests. Her linguistic abilities had detected planning for operations that would have transferred classified information about next-generation fighter aircraft, advanced missile defense systems, and quantum computing applications with significant military implications. The financial investigation revealed that foreign intelligence services had been using sophisticated money laundering techniques to compensate American defense contractor personnel for providing classified information, creating financial incentives that had corrupted individuals with security clearances and access to sensitive military technologies. Elena's detection of their money transfer discussions had provided federal investigators with evidence that led to identification of compromised personnel and recovery of classified materials before they could reach foreign intelligence services. Agent Walsh explained that Elena's chance encounter had prevented foreign acquisition of technologies that would have significantly degraded American military advantages in areas ranging from electronic warfare to advanced materials science. The classified research that foreign operatives had been attempting to acquire included developments that could influence military balance of power between the United States and hostile foreign nations for decades to come. Federal prosecutors were preparing cases that would result in life sentences for foreign intelligence operatives and lengthy prison terms for American personnel who had betrayed national security interests for financial gain. The evidence gathered through Elena's initial intelligence and subsequent cooperation had provided documentation that met legal standards for prosecution while protecting intelligence sources and methods that remained classified at levels requiring special security clearances. Elena's transformation from restaurant server to federal intelligence consultant had occurred gradually through weeks of intensive cooperation with counterintelligence teams, but the scale of her impact became clear only when federal authorities revealed the full scope of foreign operations that her linguistic abilities had detected and disrupted. Her military training had prepared her to recognize threats against American interests, but civilian circumstances had provided the operational cover that allowed her to detect activities that traditional surveillance methods had missed. The recognition Elena received from federal authorities included formal commendation from the FBI director, acknowledgement from Defense Intelligence Agency leadership, and personal thanks from the Secretary of Defense that highlighted her contributions to protecting American military technological advantages and personnel safety. But the most meaningful recognition came from soldiers currently deployed overseas who would benefit from security improvements implemented because foreign intelligence penetration had been detected and eliminated. Elena's financial compensation for federal consulting services reflected the true value of her linguistic abilities and intelligence analysis skills, providing economic security that eliminated the necessity of working multiple minimum wage jobs while pursuing educational opportunities that could lead to career advancement, consistent with her abilities and training. Federal authorities offered permanent employment with salaries that acknowledged her extraordinary capabilities and provided benefits that supported her ongoing mental health needs. But Elena's decision about future career directions required careful consideration of psychological factors that civilian employment had helped her manage through distance from intelligence responsibilities that created ongoing stress and anxiety. Her military experience had demonstrated that intelligence work provided meaningful contribution to national security objectives while exacting personal costs that civilian employment had helped mitigate through routine activities that did not involve processing information about threats against American interests. The federal investigation had also revealed threats against Elena's personal safety that required ongoing security measures to protect her from retaliation by foreign intelligence services whose operations she had disrupted. Russian intelligence services had identified her as a significant threat to their American operations and were actively seeking opportunities to neutralize her through methods that could include assassination, kidnapping, or recruitment attempts. Designed to compromise her loyalty to American interests, Elena's apartment received permanent security upgrades that included surveillance detection equipment, emergency communication systems, and quick reaction protocols that could provide federal protection if hostile foreign services attempted operations against her. Her daily routines required modification to include operational security measures that civilian life had not previously demanded, changes that reminded her constantly of ongoing threats associated with her involvement in counterintelligence activities. The psychological impact of renewed exposure to classified information about threats against American interests reactivated trauma symptoms that Elena had managed through civilian employment that provided distance from national security responsibilities. Federal mental health professionals worked with Elena to develop coping strategies that allowed her to function effectively in intelligence work while maintaining psychological stability that military service had sometimes compromised. Elena's relationship with her family required careful management of information about her federal involvement that could expose them to security risks if foreign intelligence services identified them as potential targets for pressure operations designed to influence Elena's continued cooperation with American authorities. Her mother and siblings received security briefings that explained basic precautions, without revealing details about Elena's specific contributions to counterintelligence operations. The media coverage of the federal arrests mentioned Elena only as an unnamed federal intelligence asset whose information had initiated the investigation, protection of her identity that prevented foreign intelligence services from identifying her as the source of intelligence that had disrupted their operations. Public recognition of her contributions would have satisfied natural desires for acknowledgement, while creating security risks that could affect her safety and her family's well-being. Elena's colleagues at Riverside Diner learned about her departure. only through standard notice that she had accepted federal employment, explanations that protected operational security while maintaining relationships with people who had appreciated her work ethic and professional competence. Her transition from restaurant service to federal consulting represented dramatic improvement in her economic circumstances, while returning her to work that utilized her extraordinary abilities. The federal investigation revealed that foreign intelligence operations targeting American defense contractors had been ongoing for over 5 years before Elena's linguistic abilities detected activities that traditional surveillance methods had failed to identify. Her chance encounter with Russian operatives had provided breakthrough intelligence that allowed federal authorities to map comprehensive networks of foreign penetration and take coordinated action that prevented significant damage to American technological advantages. Elena's military training had prepared her to recognize threats against American interests, but civilian circumstances had provided operational cover that allowed her to detect foreign intelligence activities in environments where traditional surveillance would have been impossible or ineffective. Restaurant settings created opportunities for observing foreign operatives who felt secure enough to discuss sensitive operations in public spaces where they assumed linguistic barriers protected their communications from detection. The success of Elena's transition from military intelligence to civilian cover and back to federal consulting demonstrated the ongoing value of specialized military training for protecting American interests in increasingly complex international security environments. Her linguistic abilities and cultural analysis skills represented exactly the capabilities that federal agencies needed for detecting and countering foreign intelligence operations that threatened American military technological advantages. Elena's decision to accept permanent federal employment reflected recognition that her abilities created ongoing obligations to protect American interests regardless of personal preferences for civilian employment that provided psychological distance from national security responsibilities. Her military oath to protect American interests remained binding throughout civilian employment, creating moral frameworks that civilian status had not eliminated despite her efforts to escape psychological pressures associated with intelligence work. The federal recognition Elena received validated abilities that civilian employment had undervalued, while demonstrating that authentic excellence eventually attracts attention from authorities capable of providing appropriate opportunities and compensation. Her transformation from invisible restaurant server to key federal intelligence asset illustrated broader themes about hidden talent, economic injustice, and the importance of recognizing extraordinary capabilities regardless of current employment circumstances. Elena's story became classified case study used for training federal personnel about the importance of maintaining connections with military veterans whose specialized abilities could provide crucial intelligence in unexpected circumstances. Her linguistic skills and cultural training represented resources that federal agencies needed for protecting American interests, but that civilian employment markets often failed to recognize or compensate appropriately. The foreign intelligence operations that Elena detected and helped disrupt represented ongoing threats that required sustained federal attention and resources to prevent future penetration of American defense contractors and military research institutions. Her contributions had provided federal authorities with intelligence that improved understanding of foreign methods and capabilities, while preventing specific operations that could have compromised American military technological advantages for decades to come. 18 months after Elena's chance encounter with foreign operatives at Riverside Diner, she stood before a secure conference room filled with the nation's most senior intelligence officials. delivering a presentation about linguistic intelligence gathering that would reshape how federal agencies approached counter-espionage operations in civilian environments. Her transformation from invisible restaurant server to recognized national security expert represented more than personal success. It demonstrated fundamental truths about hidden talent, overlooked capabilities, and the extraordinary potential that exists within ordinary circumstances. Elena's current role as Senior Linguistic Intelligence Analyst at the FBI's National Security Branch provided her with opportunities to utilize abilities that civilian employment had never fully engaged, while contributing to operations that protected American interests in ways that created meaningful impact beyond personal career advancement. Her work involved developing training programs that taught federal agents to recognize and recruit civilian assets whose specialized skills could provide intelligence unavailable through traditional surveillance methods. The presentation Elena delivered that morning included case studies from 17 subsequent investigations that had been initiated through civilian intelligence assets whose linguistic abilities, cultural knowledge, or professional expertise had detected foreign intelligence operations in environments ranging from academic conferences to business networking events. Her initial detection of Russian espionage activities had inspired systematic efforts to identify and engage American civilians whose backgrounds and abilities position them to observe foreign intelligence activities that federal agencies could not monitor directly. Elena's training programs had helped federal agents identify former military linguists working in service industries, immigrant communities with cultural knowledge about hostile foreign nations, and academic professionals, whose research areas provided insights into foreign intelligence priorities and methods. The network of civilian intelligence assets that emerged from Elena's pioneering example had detected and disrupted foreign operations targeting American universities, technology companies, and government facilities across multiple states. But Elena's most significant contribution to American counterintelligence capabilities involved developing psychological and operational frameworks that allowed federal agencies to engage civilian assets while protecting their mental health and personal security. Her own experience with post-traumatic stress symptoms and the challenges of transitioning between military and civilian identities had provided insights that helped federal mental health professionals support other veterans and immigrants whose specialized abilities created opportunities for meaningful contribution to national security objectives. Elena's apartment, now located in a secure residential complex designed for federal employees whose work required enhanced security measures, reflected the dramatic transformation in her circumstances while maintaining connections to experiences that had shaped her character and values. Photographs from her military service shared wall space with commendations from federal agencies, creating visual reminders of a career path that had connected service to country with personal fulfillment and professional recognition. The financial security that federal employment provided had allowed Elena to pursue educational opportunities that enhanced her abilities while supporting family members whose sacrifices had enabled her military service and subsequent contributions to national security. Her mother's medical expenses no longer created financial stress that forced choices between personal needs and family obligations. Her younger brother's college education received support that eliminated debt burdens that could have limited his career options and life choices. Elena's relationship with her family had evolved to include pride in her federal service, while maintaining protective boundaries about classified information that could expose them to security risks if foreign intelligence services identified them as potential targets for pressure operations. Her siblings understood that Elena's work involved protecting American interests without knowing specific details about operations that required security clearances and compartmentalized access to classified information. The recognition Elena received from federal authorities included invitations to speak at military academies, intelligence training facilities, and veteran services organizations about the ongoing value of military training and the importance of utilizing specialized abilities for protecting American interests, regardless of current employment circumstances. Her presentations emphasize themes about service, sacrifice, and the moral obligations that continued beyond active duty commitments. Elena's story had become inspiration for thousands of military veterans whose specialized training created opportunities for meaningful contribution to national security objectives through civilian employment that provided operational cover for intelligence-gathering activities. Federal agencies developed recruitment programs specifically designed to identify and engage former military personnel whose linguistic abilities, cultural knowledge, or technical expertise positioned them to detect foreign intelligence operations. The traditional surveillance methods could not monitor effectively, but Elena's greatest satisfaction came from letters she received from active duty military personnel whose safety had been enhanced through intelligence operations that prevented foreign acquisition of classified technologies and tactical information. Her detection of Russian espionage activities had contributed to security improvements that protected American soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines whose missions required technological advantages that foreign intelligence services continuously sought to compromise. The broader impact of Elena's contributions extended beyond specific intelligence operations to include systemic changes in how federal agencies approach civilian engagement, veteran services, and the recognition of hidden talent within American society. Her transformation from overlooked restaurant server to recognized national security expert had inspired policy changes that created opportunities for thousands of individuals whose abilities exceeded their apparent circumstances. Elena's work had influenced federal hiring practices that now included systematic efforts to identify and recruit veterans whose specialized military training provided capabilities that civilian employment markets often failed to recognize or compensate appropriately. The gap between military abilities and civilian opportunities had been partially addressed through programs that created pathways from military service to federal employment that utilized specialized skills while providing economic security and professional advancement. The federal investigation that Elena's intelligence had initiated continued to produce arrests and prosecutions that dismantled foreign intelligence networks, targeting American defense contractors, technology companies, and research institutions. Her initial detection of 2 Russian operatives had revealed connections to espionage activities that spanned multiple countries and involved sophisticated coordination between hostile foreign services and criminal organizations specializing in technology, theft, and financial crimes. Elena's linguistic abilities had provided federal investigators with access to intercepted communications that revealed foreign intelligence priorities, operational methods, and strategic objectives that informed American security policies and defensive measures. Her cultural analysis skills had helped federal agencies understand psychological and organizational frameworks that influenced foreign intelligence operations, while developing countermeasures that exploited foreign operational weaknesses and assumptions. The training programs Elena developed had been adopted by intelligence agencies throughout the federal government and shared with allied nations whose security interests aligned with American objectives. Her insights about civilian intelligence, gathering had influenced NATO counterintelligence protocols and contributed to international cooperation that enhanced security for democratic nations facing similar threats from hostile foreign intelligence services. Elena's apartment contained academic journals and professional publications that reflected her ongoing intellectual engagement with linguistic research, cultural analysis, and international security studies that informed her federal work while maintaining connections to academic interests that provided personal fulfillment beyond professional obligations. Her federal salary had allowed her to pursue graduate education that enhanced her abilities, while contributing to research that benefited broader intelligence community capabilities. But Elena's most meaningful accomplishment involved creating support networks for other military veterans whose transition to civilian employment had been complicated by specialized training that civilian employers could not recognize or utilize effectively. Her advocacy had influenced federal policies that provided better support for veterans while creating opportunities for meaningful contribution to national security objectives through civilian employment that provided operational cover for intelligence activities. The psychological challenges that Elena had faced during her transition from military to civilian employment had been addressed through federal mental health programs that she had helped design based on her personal experience with post-traumatic stress symptoms and the difficulties of maintaining emotional stability while processing classified information about threats against American interests and personnel. Elena's current work involved international travel to liaison with allied intelligence services, whose counter-espionage operations benefited from American linguistic capabilities and cultural analysis expertise. Her federal assignments had taken her to NATO headquarters in Brussels, intelligence facilities in London and Canberra, and security conferences in Tokyo, where her insights about civilian intelligence gathering had influenced international approaches to detecting and countering foreign espionage activities. The recognition Elena received from international intelligence professionals validated approaches to civilian engagement that had emerged from her initial detection of foreign operatives at Riverside Diner. Her methods had been adopted by allied nations whose security agencies faced similar challenges in detecting foreign intelligence operations that utilized civilian environments for conducting espionage activities against democratic governments and their defense capabilities. Elena's transformation demonstrated that authentic excellence possesses magnetic qualities that eventually attract recognition from authorities capable of providing appropriate opportunities and compensation. But her story also illustrated that such recognition often requires persistence, courage, and willingness to accept risks that comfortable circumstances might discourage. Her decision to act on intelligence obtained through chance encounter had required accepting personal dangers that civilian employment was supposed to eliminate from her daily experience. The broader implications of Elena's story extended beyond individual achievement to include lessons about social justice, economic opportunity, and the importance of recognizing hidden talent within communities whose contributions might otherwise remain invisible to people in positions of authority. Her experience highlighted systemic problems that prevented society from benefiting from extraordinary abilities that circumstances had forced into inadequate employment situations. Elena's evening routine now included reviewing classified intelligence, reports from federal field offices whose operations continued to benefit from civilian assets, whose linguistic abilities, cultural knowledge, or professional expertise provided intelligence unavailable through traditional surveillance methods. Her pioneering example had created operational frameworks that allowed federal agencies to engage civilian talent while protecting personal security and mental health of individuals whose specialized abilities created opportunities for meaningful contribution to national security objectives. The impact of Elena's contributions would continue expanding through training programs, policy changes, and operational methods that utilized civilian capabilities for protecting American interests in increasingly complex international security environments. Her transformation from invisible restaurant server to recognized intelligence professional had demonstrated that authentic service creates its own rewards while protecting democratic values that required ongoing vigilance and sacrifice from people whose abilities exceeded their apparent circumstances. Elena's story reminded Americans that extraordinary talent often exists within ordinary circumstances, that genuine excellence eventually attracts recognition from authorities capable of providing appropriate opportunities, and that individual courage can create positive changes that benefit entire communities. Her experience proved that military service creates ongoing obligations that extend beyond active duty commitments, while demonstrating that civilian employment can provide operational cover for continued service to national security objectives that protect democratic freedoms and American interests worldwide. Elena's influence extended far beyond the confines of federal intelligence agencies when she received an unexpected phone call on a crisp October morning that would connect her story to corporate America in ways she had never anticipated. Her voice belonged to Catherine Morrison, CEO of Morrison Global Enterprises, a multinational corporation whose defense contracting divisions had been among the primary targets of the Russian espionage network that Elena's linguistic abilities had helped expose and dismantle. Morrison Global Enterprises represented exactly the type of American company that foreign intelligence services targeted for technology theft, employing over 40,000 people across facilities that developed everything from advanced cybersecurity systems to next-generation aerospace technologies. Catherine Morrison had built her reputation on recognizing talent in unexpected places and creating corporate cultures that rewarded authentic excellence rather than superficial performance, values that aligned perfectly with lessons learned from Elena's extraordinary contribution to national security. The conversation between Catherine Morrison and Elena began with expressions of gratitude for preventing foreign acquisition of proprietary technologies that represented decades of research and development investment. But it evolved into something far more significant, an offer that would allow Elena to bridge her federal intelligence work with private sector initiatives designed to protect American corporate interests from ongoing foreign espionage threats. Catherine Morrison's proposal involved creating a new corporate security division that would utilize Elena's expertise in linguistic intelligence gathering, cultural analysis, and foreign threat assessment to develop comprehensive protection strategies for American companies whose technologies and business practices made them attractive targets for hostile foreign intelligence services. The position would combine Elena's federal consulting responsibilities with corporate leadership opportunities that could influence how American businesses approached international security challenges. Elena's initial reaction reflected the caution that federal training had instilled regarding offers that seemed too advantageous to evaluate without careful consideration of hidden complications or security implications. Corporate employment often created conflicts of interest between private profit motives and national security objectives, ethical challenges that could compromise the integrity that had defined Elena's military service and federal consulting work. But Catherine Morrison's reputation for ethical business practices and her company's commitment to supporting American national security interests provided reassurance that corporate employment could enhance rather than compromise Elena's contributions to protecting American interests. Morrison Global Enterprises had consistently prioritized national security considerations over short-term profit opportunities, maintaining security standards that exceeded federal requirements while supporting government initiatives designed to counter foreign intelligence threats. The corporate security position would allow Elena to develop training programs that taught American business executives to recognize and counter foreign intelligence operations targeting their companies, employees, and proprietary technologies. Her linguistic abilities and cultural analysis skills would help corporations understand how foreign intelligence services approached recruitment of American personnel and penetration of American business operations. Elena's decision to accept Catherine Morrison's offer required careful coordination with federal authorities to ensure that corporate responsibilities would complement rather than conflict with her ongoing intelligence consulting work. Federal agencies supported Elena's transition to corporate security leadership because private sector engagement could enhance counterintelligence capabilities while providing additional protection for American companies whose technologies contributed to national security advantages. The announcement of Elena's appointment as Director of International Security Analysis at Morrison Global Enterprises created ripple effects throughout corporate America as other companies sought to understand how linguistic intelligence gathering and cultural analysis could protect their interests from foreign espionage threats. Elena's story had demonstrated that traditional corporate security approaches often failed to detect sophisticated foreign intelligence operations that utilized cultural and linguistic advantages to penetrate American business environments. Elena's first corporate presentation, delivered to an audience of Fortune 500 executives at a security conference in Washington, D.C., challenged fundamental assumptions about corporate vulnerability to foreign intelligence penetration while providing practical frameworks for recognizing and countering threats that traditional security measures often missed entirely. Her insights about foreign operational methods had emerged from direct experience with detecting and disrupting espionage activities rather than theoretical knowledge derived from academic study. The corporate executives who attended Elena's presentation represented companies whose technologies, financial resources, and international operations made them attractive targets for foreign intelligence services seeking to acquire American innovations while compromising American competitive advantages. In global markets, Elena's presentation provided these leaders with information that could protect their companies while contributing to broader national security objectives. Elena's corporate office at Morrison Global Enterprises reflected the dramatic transformation in her circumstances while maintaining connections to experiences that had shaped her character and values. Military commendations shared display space with corporate awards, creating visual reminders of a career path that had connected service to country with professional success and personal fulfillment through recognition of authentic excellence. The financial compensation associated with Elena's corporate position provided economic security that exceeded anything she had imagined possible during her years of military service or federal consulting work. But Elena's satisfaction came primarily from opportunities to utilize her abilities for protecting American interests through channels that combined public service with private sector innovation and efficiency. Elena's work involved developing security protocols that protected American corporations from foreign intelligence penetration while maintaining business relationships with international partners whose cooperation contributed to American economic interests and strategic objectives. The challenge lay in balancing security requirements with commercial considerations that could affect American competitiveness in global markets, where foreign competitors enjoyed government support for espionage activities. The training programs Elena developed for corporate executives included modules about recognizing foreign recruitment attempts, identifying suspicious business relationships, and maintaining security awareness during international travel or negotiations that could expose American proprietary information to foreign intelligence gathering. Her programs addressed psychological and cultural factors that influence foreign intelligence operations while providing practical guidance for protecting American business interests. Elena's corporate responsibilities required international travel to company facilities in Europe, Asia, and South America, where she assessed local security environments while developing relationships with foreign business partners whose cooperation could provide intelligence about hostile foreign intelligence activities targeting American corporations. These assignments combined her linguistic abilities with cultural analysis skills that federal training had developed for exactly such purposes. The psychological challenges associated with Elena's corporate work involved managing classified information about foreign intelligence threats while maintaining productive business relationships with international partners whose governments might be involved in espionage activities targeting American interests. Her federal training had prepared her for such ethical complexities, but corporate circumstances required navigation of legal and diplomatic considerations that military service had not included. Elena's influence within Morrison Global Enterprises extended beyond security responsibilities to include strategic planning that incorporated intelligence assessments about foreign economic policies, technological capabilities, and commercial strategies that could affect American business interests. Her cultural analysis abilities provided corporate leadership with insights about foreign business practices and negotiation approaches that enhanced American competitive advantages. The recognition Elena received from corporate America included invitations to speak at business conferences, academic institutions, and professional organizations about the intersection between national security and commercial interests in increasingly complex global economic environments. Her presentations emphasized themes about authentic excellence, hidden talent, and the importance of recognizing and utilizing extraordinary capabilities, regardless of current circumstances. Elena's story had inspired corporate recruitment policies that actively sought veterans whose specialized military training provided capabilities that traditional business education often failed to develop. Companies began recognizing that military linguistic abilities, cultural analysis skills, and intelligence training could provide competitive advantages in international business environments where foreign competitors enjoyed government support for commercial espionage activities. But Elena's greatest corporate achievement involved creating partnerships between American businesses and federal intelligence agencies that enhanced protection for proprietary technologies, while supporting national security objectives through information sharing that benefited both private sector interests and government counterintelligence capabilities. These partnerships represented innovative approaches to protecting American economic and security interests simultaneously. Elena's evening routine now included reviewing corporate intelligence reports from international facilities whose operations continued to benefit from security protocols that she had developed based on her experience with detecting and countering foreign intelligence operations. Her corporate position had created opportunities to influence American business practices while maintaining connections to federal intelligence work that protected national security interests. The media attention that Elena's corporate appointment attracted focused on themes about recognizing hidden talent, overcoming economic injustice and creating opportunities for military veterans whose specialized abilities often remained underutilized in civilian employment markets that could not recognize or compensate extraordinary capabilities appropriately. Her transformation from restaurant server to corporate executive had captured public imagination while inspiring policy changes that benefited thousands of veterans. Elena's corporate success had influenced federal legislation that created tax incentives for companies that hired military veterans in positions that utilized their specialized training while supporting national security objectives through private sector engagement. These policy changes represented systematic efforts to address gaps between military capabilities and civilian opportunities that had affected Elena's own transition from federal service to meaningful employment. The broader impact of Elena's corporate leadership extended beyond Morrison Global Enterprises to include industry-wide changes in how American companies approached international security challenges, while recognizing that economic competition and national security considerations required integrated strategies rather than separate approaches. Her insights had influenced corporate policies throughout American business environments. Elena's apartment now contained corporate strategic planning documents alongside federal intelligence reports, reflecting responsibilities that spanned private sector and government interests while maintaining security protocols that protected classified information from unauthorized disclosure. Her federal security clearance remained active through consulting arrangements that allowed coordination between corporate and government security initiatives. The international recognition Elena received from allied business leaders and security professionals validated approaches to corporate security that had emerged from her unique combination of military intelligence training, federal consulting experience, and corporate leadership responsibilities. Her methods had been adopted by multinational corporations whose security requirements involved protecting proprietary technologies from foreign intelligence penetration. Elena's transformation continued evolving as she developed relationships with academic institutions whose research programs could benefit from her insights about foreign intelligence methods while contributing to educational initiatives that prepared future business leaders for international security challenges. Her academic partnerships represented extensions of her corporate responsibilities into educational environments that influenced long-term American competitive capabilities. The psychological satisfaction that Elena derived from her corporate work reflected recognition that her abilities were finally being utilized for purposes that created meaningful impact, while providing economic security and professional advancement that acknowledged her extraordinary capabilities. Her federal consulting work continued, providing opportunities for direct service to national security objectives, while corporate responsibilities allowed broader influence on American business practices and international competitiveness. Elena's story had demonstrated that authentic excellence possesses transformative power that extends beyond individual achievement to include systemic changes that benefit entire communities, industries, and national interests. Her journey from invisible restaurant server to recognized corporate leader illustrated fundamental truths about hidden talent, economic justice, and the importance of creating opportunities for people whose abilities exceed their apparent circumstances, while contributing to purposes larger than personal advancement. 5 years after Elena Vasquez first overheard a conversation that would change her life forever, she stood before an audience of 300 military academy cadets at West Point, delivering the commencement address that would inspire a new generation of service members to understand that their obligations to protect American interests extend far beyond their active duty commitments. Her presence on that prestigious stage represented the culmination of a journey that had transformed her from invisible restaurant server to one of America's most respected authorities on civilian intelligence gathering and corporate security. Elena's speech that morning focused on themes that had defined her extraordinary career: the importance of recognizing hidden talent, the power of authentic service, and the ongoing responsibilities that military training creates for protecting American values and interests regardless of current employment circumstances. She spoke about the moment at Riverside Diner when linguistic abilities developed through military service had detected foreign intelligence operations that traditional surveillance methods had missed entirely. But Elena's message extended beyond her personal experience to include broader lessons about the extraordinary potential that exists within ordinary circumstances, the importance of treating every encounter as an opportunity to serve others, and the transformative power of recognizing authentic excellence wherever it might be found. Her story had demonstrated that the most significant contributions to national security often came from people whose abilities remained hidden beneath surface appearances. The cadets who listened to Elena's presentation represented the future of American military leadership. Young men and women whose specialized training would eventually transition into civilian careers that could provide ongoing opportunities for protecting American interests through channels that combined public service with private sector innovation. Elena's example had shown that military service creates ethical frameworks and professional capabilities that remain valuable throughout civilian employment. Elena's current role as Chief Security Officer at Morrison Global Enterprises had evolved to include responsibilities that spanned corporate security, federal consulting, and academic partnerships that influenced how American institutions approached international security challenges. Her office overlooked the Potomac River from the 32nd floor of a building that housed some of America's most innovative defense contractors and technology companies. The recognition Elena had received from corporate America, federal agencies, and international security organizations reflected widespread acknowledgement that her contributions had fundamentally changed approaches to civilian intelligence gathering, while demonstrating the ongoing value of military training for protecting democratic institutions and values. Her methods had been adopted by organizations throughout the United States and allied nations whose security requirements involved detecting and countering sophisticated foreign intelligence operations. But Elena's greatest satisfaction came from letters she continued receiving from active-duty military personnel whose safety had been enhanced through security improvements that her work had helped implement. The foreign intelligence operations that her linguistic abilities had detected and disrupted at Riverside Diner had led to systematic changes in how American defense contractors protected proprietary technologies from foreign penetration, while supporting national security objectives. Elena's evening routine now included reviewing reports from corporate security teams whose training programs had helped identify and counter foreign intelligence activities targeting American businesses in industries ranging from aerospace to biotechnology. Her pioneering work had created operational frameworks that allowed civilian employees to contribute to national security objectives while maintaining productive international business relationships. The financial transformation in Elena's circumstances had allowed her to support educational initiatives that created opportunities for military veterans whose specialized abilities often remained underutilized in civilian employment markets. Her charitable foundation provided scholarships for veterans pursuing advanced education, while funding research programs that developed better approaches to military-to-civilian career transitions. Elena's family had shared in the benefits of Her professional success while maintaining protective boundaries about classified information that could expose them to security risks if foreign intelligence services identified them as potential targets for pressure operations. Her mother's medical care no longer created financial stress, and her younger brother had completed college education with support that eliminated debt burdens that could have limited his career options. The media attention that Elena's story had attracted over the years had focused public awareness on broader issues affecting military veterans, hidden talent in American workplaces, and the importance of recognizing extraordinary capabilities that circumstances might conceal beneath ordinary appearances. Her transformation had inspired policy changes that benefited thousands of veterans while influencing corporate recruitment practices throughout American business environments. Elena's academic partnerships had evolved to include guest lectures at universities whose international relations and business programs could benefit from her insights about foreign intelligence methods, cultural analysis techniques, and the intersection between national security considerations and commercial interests in global economic environments. Her teaching provided intellectual stimulation while contributing to educational initiatives that prepared future leaders for complex international challenges. The psychological healing that Elena had achieved through meaningful work that utilized her extraordinary abilities while contributing to purposes larger than personal advancement had resolved many of the post-traumatic stress symptoms that had motivated her initial transition. From military service to civilian employment, her federal mental health support had helped her develop coping strategies that allowed effective functioning in high-stress intelligence work while maintaining emotional stability. Elena's current apartment, located in a secure residential complex designed for federal employees and defense contractors whose work required enhanced security measures, reflected the dramatic transformation in her circumstances while maintaining connections to experiences that had shaped her character and values. Photographs from military service shared wall space with corporate awards and federal commendations, creating visual reminders of a career path that had connected service to country with personal fulfillment and professional recognition. The international speaking engagements that Elena's expertise had generated included presentations to NATO intelligence conferences, corporate security summits, and academic symposiums where her insights about civilian intelligence gathering had influenced approaches to detecting and countering foreign espionage activities targeting democratic institutions and commercial interests. Elena's story had become required reading at military academies, intelligence training facilities, and business schools whose curricula address the intersection between national security and commercial interests in increasingly complex global environments where foreign competitors enjoyed government support for espionage activities targeting American technological and economic advantages. But perhaps Elena's most important legacy involved inspiring thousands of military veterans to understand that their specialized training created ongoing opportunities for meaningful contribution to national security objectives through civilian employment that provided operational cover for continued service to American interests and democratic values. Her example had demonstrated that authentic excellence possesses gravitational force that eventually attracts recognition from authorities capable of providing appropriate opportunities and compensation. As Elena concluded her West Point address, she reminded the graduating cadets that their military training would prepare them for challenges they could not yet imagine, that their obligations to protect American interests would continue long after their active duty service ended, and that extraordinary opportunities often emerged from ordinary circumstances, for people who maintained readiness to serve others, regardless of personal circumstances or professional expectations. Elena's final words to the cadets reflected lessons learned through her own remarkable journey. Every day, you will encounter opportunities to use your training for protecting others, serving your country, and demonstrating the values that military service has instilled in your character. Sometimes those opportunities will arrive in dramatic circumstances that test your courage under fire. But more often, they will appear in quiet moments when you least expect them, disguised as routine encounters that could change everything if you remain alert to possibilities that others might miss entirely. Her story reminds us all that extraordinary people exist in the most ordinary circumstances, that authentic service creates its own rewards, and that the quiet heroes working around us every day often possess capabilities that could transform our organizations, our communities, and our world if we develop the wisdom to recognize their true worth and the courage to provide them with opportunities that match their extraordinary potential. If this story inspired you to look more carefully at the people around you, to appreciate the hidden talents that circumstances might conceal, or to remember that authentic excellence eventually attracts the recognition it deserves, then please subscribe to our channel for more stories about the extraordinary potential that exists within ordinary lives. Share this video with someone who needs to remember that their current circumstances do not define their ultimate possibilities, and that sometimes the most transformative changes begin with simple acts of genuine kindness and authentic service to others.